The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out like a vast cathedral of light and metal. Hundreds of species gathered here, each representative sitting in their designated area. The chamber had been built thousands of years ago by the Voran, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Its walls glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Captain Daniel Brooks stood near the human section, his dress uniform crisp and clean. Next to him, Commander Lisa Martinez held a data pad, her fingers trembling slightly. They had just returned from the Outer Rim territories where the battle against the Krath swarm had finally ended. The victory had come at a terrible price. The Krath were insect-like creatures that traveled in massive swarms, consuming everything in their path. They had appeared 6 months ago at the edge of Council space, threatening 5 colony worlds. The Council had debated for weeks about what to do. Species after species had made excuses. Their fleets were too far away. Their soldiers were needed elsewhere. The risk was too great. Then humanity had volunteered. Earth's fleet, along with colonial defense forces, had mobilized within days. They had jumped into the conflict zone with 40 warships and over 60,000 soldiers. The humans had known the odds were against them, but they went anyway. Daniel remembered the battle clearly. The Krath had come in waves, their bioships spitting acid and launching boarding pods. Human ships had formed defensive lines around the colonies, taking hit after hit. The USS Defender had been cut in half. The Edinburgh had burned in space for 3 hours before its reactor finally exploded. Station Gamma 7 had fought until the Krath overwhelmed it, and every human aboard had died fighting. But humanity had held the line. They had destroyed the Krath hive ships and driven the swarm back into deep space. 5 worlds had been saved. Over 12 million Council citizens lived because humans had bled for them. The cost had been brutal. 42,000 human soldiers and crew members had died. Another 18,000 were wounded. 10 ships had been destroyed completely. 15 more were damaged so badly they would never fly again. Lisa's brother Jake had been among the dead. He had served on the USS Defender as a weapons officer. When the ship broke apart, he had stayed at his station, still firing at Krath ships until the vacuum took him. Daniel had delivered the news to Lisa himself, holding her as she cried in the corridor of their command ship. Now they stood in the Council chamber for what was supposed to be a memorial service. The Voreen High Chancellor, Vexnar, stood at the central podium. His species looked almost plant-like, with bark-textured skin and eyes that glowed with a soft green light. He was speaking about the battle, about the victory, about the colonies that had been saved, but he barely mentioned the humans who had died. He spoke about them as if they were numbers in a report, not people with families and dreams and futures. Daniel felt his jaw tighten as he listened. When Vexnar finished, other Council members took turns speaking. A representative from the Keltani species praised the Council's wisdom. A diplomat from the Zorvan worlds talked about unity and strength. None of them talked about the human sacrifice. Then Ambassador Krelthor approached the podium. The reptilian was one of the senior members of the Council, representing the powerful Drak Confederation. His scales gleamed under the chamber lights as he began to speak. This victory shows the value of proper resource allocation, Krelthor said, his voice carrying through the chamber. The Council made the correct decision in deploying human forces. They proved themselves to be acceptable cannon fodder for defending the more valuable systems and species of our alliance. The words hung in the air like poison. Daniel felt Lisa stiffen beside him. Across the chamber, other human representatives looked up in shock and anger. Cannon fodder. The ambassador had just called 42,000 dead humans cannon fodder. Krelthor continued speaking, oblivious to the impact of his words. He talked about military strategy and defense positioning. He mentioned how the Council's more advanced species had been preserved for future conflicts. He suggested that humanity should feel honored to have served in this capacity. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. He wanted to march up to that podium and tell the ambassador exactly what he thought. He wanted to show Krelthor the list of names, every single human who had died. He wanted to make them all understand that these were people, not tools to be used and discarded. But he stayed still. This was the Galactic Council. There were protocols and procedures. Humans were the newest members, having joined only 15 years ago after first contact. They were told repeatedly that they needed to learn their place to understand how things worked in galactic society. Lisa was shaking now. Daniel put a hand on her shoulder. She looked at him, tears streaming down her face. Her brother had died, protecting Council worlds, and now a Council ambassador was calling him fodder, calling them all fodder. When the ceremony ended, Daniel requested a meeting with the Council leadership. It took 3 days to get approved. When he finally stood before the Council's executive committee, he brought evidence of everything humanity had contributed. The technology Earth had shared, the medical advances that had saved millions across Council space, the tactical systems that had improved defense capabilities by 40%. He also brought the names, all 42,000 of them. He read some of them aloud. Jake Martinez, weapons officer. Amy Chen, medical corpsman. Kevin Taylor, fighter pilot. Rachel Moore, engineer. He wanted the Council to understand that these were real people. The Council members listened politely. When Daniel finished, High Chancellor Vexanar thanked him for his service. Then he explained that Ambassador Krelthor's words had been taken out of context. The translation software sometimes created misunderstandings. Surely the humans understood that no insult was intended. Daniel tried to explain that the words were clear in every human language, that the insult was understood perfectly, that humanity deserved better after what they had sacrificed. Vexanar smiled, a gesture that looked strange on his plant-like face. He assured Daniel that humanity was valued, but when Daniel asked about voting rights for human representatives, about equal standing in the Council, the smile faded. Vexanar explained that such things took time. Humanity was still new to galactic society. They needed to prove themselves further. "We have proven ourselves," Daniel said quietly. 42,000 times over. The High Chancellor did not respond to that. Instead, he dismissed Daniel, saying the Council had other matters to attend to. Lisa was waiting outside the chamber. She had spent the 3 days gathering more information. What she had found made Daniel's blood run cold. Human technology was being used across Council space, but the patents and credits were going to other species. The AI systems Earth had developed were now labeled as Voran creations. The medical scanners designed by human doctors were being sold as Kelthani inventions. Humanity was being robbed, and the Council was allowing it to happen. No, worse than that. The Council was participating in it. They returned to Earth with all of this evidence. The news spread quickly. Every human colony, every station, every ship in the fleet heard about Ambassador Krelthor's words. They learned about the stolen technology. They discovered that the Council had been using humanity since first contact, taking everything humans offered while giving nothing in return. Protests erupted across human space. People took to the streets on Earth, Mars, Luna, and the outer colonies. They demanded answers. They demanded respect. They demanded that their government do something about this betrayal. Daniel watched the news feeds from his apartment in Geneva. He saw the anger on people's faces. He understood it. He felt it too. His crew had died believing they were protecting allies, protecting friends. Instead, they had died protecting species that saw them as tools. Lisa came to visit him that evening. They sat on his balcony, looking out over the city. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Lisa broke the silence. "What do we do now?" she asked. Daniel did not have an answer. Not yet. But he knew that something had changed. Humanity had reached out to the stars with hope and friendship. They had offered everything they had to the Galactic Council, and in return, they had been used, insulted, and dismissed. The recording of Ambassador Krelthor's speech played on every human channel. His words had been watched billions of times. Acceptable cannon fodder. Those 3 words had destroyed whatever goodwill remained between humanity and the Council. In the following weeks, human representatives stopped attending Council sessions. Earth's diplomats became cold and formal in their communications. The human fleets pulled back to defensive positions around Earth and the colonies. Something was happening. something the Council did not yet understand. But Daniel understood. Lisa understood. Every human who had heard those words understood. A line had been crossed. Trust had been broken. And once trust was gone, it could never be fully restored. The stars still shone above Earth, just as they always had. But they no longer seemed so welcoming. The galaxy was not the friendly place humans had hoped it would be. It was cold and cruel, full of species that valued power over friendship, utility over dignity. And humanity was beginning to realize that maybe they did not need the... President Claire Morrison stood at the window of her office in Geneva, watching the sunrise over the Alps. She had not slept in 2 days. The crisis was growing worse by the hour, and decisions needed to be made. Decisions that would change everything for humanity. The protests had not stopped. If anything, they had grown larger. Cities across Earth and the colonies were filled with angry citizens demanding action. They wanted humanity to leave the Galactic Council. They wanted their government to stand up for human dignity. They wanted revenge for the insult and the theft. Claire understood their anger. She felt it herself. But anger was not a strategy. She needed to think clearly, to consider all options, to make choices that would serve humanity's future. Her chief of staff entered the office with fresh coffee and the latest reports. The Galactic Council was trying to contact Earth's government. High Chancellor Vexnar wanted to discuss the situation. Ambassador Krelthor had issued a statement saying his words had been misunderstood. Other council members were sending messages trying to smooth things over. Claire ignored them all. She had called a meeting with her most trusted advisors, and they would be arriving within the hour. This meeting would be classified at the highest level. No recordings, no notes that could be leaked. Just honest conversation about humanity's future. Admiral Henry Cole arrived first. The old warrior looked tired but determined. He commanded Earth's defense fleet, every warship and soldier that protected human space. He had served in the military for 40 years and had been one of the first humans to meet alien species after first contact. Next came Dr. Nathan Wells, head of the Human Research Collective. The scientist was younger than the others, barely 40, but his mind was brilliant. He had led the teams that developed much of humanity's advanced technology over the past 15 years. Captain Daniel Brooks and Commander Lisa Martinez arrived together. They had been recalled from their duties specifically for this meeting. Claire knew their input would be crucial. They had seen the Council's true face up close. Senator Paul Grant represented the outer colonies. He spoke for the millions of humans who lived beyond Earth, on Mars and Luna and the dozens of colony worlds scattered through human space. The colonies had been hit hardest by the Council's exploitation. When everyone was seated, Claire locked the door herself. She stood at the head of the table and looked at each person in turn. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "What we discuss here will determine humanity's path for generations to come. I need complete honesty from each of you. No politics, no careful words. Just truth." Admiral Cole spoke first. "The fleet is ready for whatever you decide, Madam President. But I need to tell you something. Our soldiers are angry. They feel betrayed. If we stay in the Council, I cannot guarantee they will fight for Council worlds again. They should not have to," Lisa said quietly. "We lost 42,000 people defending species that see us as tools. That cannot happen again." Dr. Wells cleared his throat. "I have information that changes everything. My teams have been working on a new faster-than-light drive system. We have achieved breakthrough results. Our new drives can travel 3 times faster than Council technology and leave no trace for their sensors to follow." The room went silent. Claire leaned forward. "Are you certain?" "Absolutely certain," Wells replied. "We tested it last month in deep space. The Council's best tracking systems could not detect our test ship. We can travel anywhere in the galaxy, and they would never be able to follow us." Senator Grant slammed his hand on the table. "Do you understand what this means? We can leave. We can take our colonies and move them beyond Council space. We can start over somewhere they will never find us." "That is a massive undertaking," Admiral Cole said. "Moving entire colonies, all our infrastructure, millions of people. It would take months, maybe years." "We have the ships," Daniel said. "Every transport, every cargo vessel, every military ship. If we work in secrecy and move quickly, we could relocate everything within 6 months." Claire held up her hand. "Before we discuss how, we need to decide if. This would mean abandoning the Galactic Council entirely. cutting all ties, leaving behind the diplomatic relationships we have built. What relationships? Lisa asked, her voice sharp. They steal our technology. They insult our dead. They refuse to give us equal standing. Those are not relationships. That is exploitation. Lisa is right, Senator Grant said. I have been reviewing the trade agreements. In every case, humanity gives more than it receives. Our medical technology saves millions of council lives every year. Our AI systems run half their infrastructure. Our tactical innovations protect their borders. And what do we get? Access to their markets where they undercut our prices. Permission to attend their meetings where they ignore our voices. The privilege of dying for their worlds. Dr. Wells pulled up a holographic display. I have documented every piece of human technology that has been stolen or copied without permission. The list is 300 items long. Our innovations have been worth trillions of credits. We have received almost nothing in compensation. Claire studied the list. Her anger grew with each item she read. The medical scanner that could detect cancer in minutes. The AI system that managed power grids. The water purification technology that could clean any water source. All human inventions. All being used across the galaxy. All credited to other species. There is something else, Admiral Cole said. My intelligence teams have discovered something disturbing. The Council has been deliberately slowing our technological development. They provide us with outdated equipment and tell us it is current. They restrict our access to certain research areas. They have been keeping us dependent on them. Why would they do that? Claire asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Because we are useful. Daniel said, we are innovative and hardworking and willing to sacrifice for others. They want to keep us exactly where we are, strong enough to be helpful but not strong enough to be independent. The room fell silent again. Claire walked back to the window. The sun was fully up now, shining on the snow-covered mountains. She thought about everything humanity had accomplished. The colonies they had built. The ships they had constructed. The technology they had developed. They had done all of this while part of the Council, while being held back and exploited. What could humanity achieve if they were free? If they could develop their technology without restrictions? If they could explore the galaxy on their own terms? She turned back to the group. I want options. Full plans for how we could make this work. Over the next week, the team worked in absolute secrecy. Dr. Wells calculated how many ships would be needed to move all human assets. Admiral Cole planned the logistics of moving military infrastructure. Senator Grant coordinated with colony leaders about which systems would be best for relocation. Daniel and Lisa studied star charts, looking for regions of space beyond Council knowledge. They found what they were looking for in the galactic northeast quadrant, a region of space that Council surveys had labeled as empty and uninteresting. Using their new FTL drives, humanity could reach it in weeks. The Council's slower ships would take years to get there, and only if they knew where to look. The region contained dozens of habitable worlds. Some needed terraforming, but humanity had that technology. There were resources, safe trade routes, and most importantly, distance from the Council. Claire reviewed the plans carefully. The operation would be called the Separation Protocol. Every human colony would be quietly prepared for relocation. Ships would be staged in position. Critical infrastructure would be packed up or destroyed so the Council could not use it. And then, over the course of 1 month, humanity would disappear. The plan was risky. If the Council discovered what was happening, they might try to stop it. There could be conflict, but the team agreed that the risk was worth taking. We need to vote on this, Claire said. This decision is too important for me to make alone. She called a secret session of Earth's government. Only the top leaders were told the full plan. The debate was intense. Some argued that humanity should try to reform the Council from within. Others worried about the dangers of isolation. But most agreed that staying was no longer acceptable. The vote was taken. 73% supported the separation protocol. Humanity would leave the Galactic Council. Claire addressed the key leaders who would make this happen. We do this quietly and carefully. No announcements, no drama. We simply leave. We owe them no explanations after how they have treated us. Start preparing your people, but tell them nothing until the last moment. Security is everything. Across human space, preparations began. On Earth, factories started producing the supplies needed for new colonies. On Mars, shipyards worked overtime building transport vessels. On Luna, military installations were quietly packed up. The outer colonies began cataloging everything that would need to be moved. Human representatives at the council started making excuses for missing meetings. Technical problems, scheduling conflicts, internal reviews. The council barely noticed. They were used to ignoring humanity anyway. Senator Grant gave a speech to a small gathering of colony leaders. He spoke about human dignity and self-determination. He reminded them of... High Chancellor Vexnar noticed the silence first. It had been 3 weeks since the last human representative attended a council session. At first, he thought nothing of it. Species missed meetings sometimes. There were always reasons, but then the communication channels went quiet. Messages to Earth's government received automatic responses about technical difficulties. Trade shipments from human space stopped arriving. The regular reports that human administrators sent about shared facilities simply stopped coming. Vexnar sent an aide to check on the human delegation's offices in the council complex. The aide returned with strange news. The offices were empty. Not just empty of people, but empty of everything. Furniture, computers, files, personal items, all gone. The rooms looked like they had been carefully cleaned and stripped. Perhaps they are renovating, the aide suggested. Vexnar did not think so. Something felt wrong. He tried calling President Claire Morrison directly using the private communication channel they had established years ago. The channel was dead, completely offline, as if it had never existed. Councillor Sindra came to see him that afternoon. The Kelthani trade minister looked worried. Her species resembled tall, thin birds with blue feathers and intelligent eyes. "The human medical shipments have not arrived," she said. "We were expecting 3 cargo ships full of vaccines. They were supposed to be here 2 weeks ago. My people have been trying to contact human shipping companies, but no one responds." "I am sure there is a reasonable explanation," Vexnar said, trying to sound confident. "Perhaps there is a communication problem." But over the next few days, more reports came in. Human trade convoys had not arrived at their scheduled destinations. Human administrators at joint facilities had not reported for duty. Human ships that were supposed to be patrolling border regions were nowhere to be found. Ambassador Krelthor dismissed the concerns. "The humans are having some kind of technical problem," he said during a council session. "Or perhaps they are sulking about my comments. They will return when they need something from us." But they did not return. Weeks passed and the silence grew louder. Vexnar sent scout ships to human territory. They jumped into the Sol system expecting to find Earth and its stations bustling with activity. Instead, they found nothing. Earth was there, but it was dark and quiet. The orbital stations were gone. The shipyards around Luna were empty. Mars looked abandoned. The scout ships sent scans and received no responses. It was as if humanity had simply vanished. The scouts moved to the outer colonies. New Boston, the thriving settlement on Alpha Centauri, was empty. Port Liberty orbiting Proxima had been completely dismantled. New Terra in the Sirius system showed no signs of life. Every single human colony, every station, every outpost was gone. More concerning were the shared facilities. The defense stations that humans had built and maintained along council borders were shut down. The power grids that human engineers had installed were offline. The communication relays that connected council space were no longer functioning. Councillor Sindra sent her own investigation teams. They found the research laboratories where human and Kelthani scientists had worked together completely empty. The advanced medical facilities were dark and silent. All the equipment was gone. Even the backup systems had been removed. They did not just leave, Sindra reported to the council. They took everything. Every piece of technology, every tool, every computer system. They left nothing behind. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Some members were angry. Others were confused. A few seemed concerned. Ambassador Krelthor stood and demanded order. "This is clearly a primitive tantrum," he said. "The humans are upset about my comments at the memorial. They will come crawling back when they realize they cannot survive without council support." Vexnar was not so sure. He had been studying the reports carefully. The evacuation had been planned and executed with precision. Humans had not fled in panic. They had moved deliberately, taking everything of value and leaving nothing the council could use. Dr. Lyra Venn, a Vorin xenobiologist who had worked closely with human researchers, requested to speak. Vexnar recognized her. She looked distressed. "I received a final message from Commander Lisa Martinez before she left," Dr. Venn said. "She wanted me to understand why they were going. She said humanity came to the council with hope and friendship. They offered their best technology, their brightest minds, their bravest soldiers, and in return they were exploited, stolen from, and insulted. She said they finally realized they deserved better. The chamber fell quiet. Some council members shifted uncomfortably. Others looked skeptical. The humans are being emotional, Krelthor said. We provided them with access to galactic civilization. That should have been enough. What exactly did we provide them? Dr. Venn asked. I have reviewed the records. We gave them outdated technology and called it advanced. We restricted their research and called it guidance. We took their innovations and claimed them as our own. And when they sacrificed 42,000 lives defending our worlds, we called them cannon fodder. The chamber erupted again. Some defended the council's actions. Others demanded to know why they had not been told about the technology theft. Vexnar called for order, but the damage was done. The council was fracturing and humanity was not even there to see it. Then the Krath attacked again. A swarm emerged from deep space, hitting a Zorvan colony world. The council fleet mobilized to respond. They expected an easy victory. After all, they had defeated the Krath before. But without human tactical systems, the battle went poorly. Council ships were too slow to respond to the Krath's fast-moving swarms. Their weapons were less accurate without the targeting AI that humans had developed. Their defenses were weaker without the shield technology that human engineers had improved. The Zorvan colony was evacuated, but not before millions died. The Council fleet lost 12 ships, a staggering number for what should have been a minor engagement. Admiral Torkfin, who commanded the Council military, sent an urgent message to Vexnar. We need the human tactical systems back online immediately, Torkfin said. Without them we are vulnerable. The Krath are testing our defenses. They sense weakness, but the human systems were gone. When Council technicians tried to access the servers where human programs had been stored, they found nothing. The data had been completely wiped. Even the backup systems had been erased. The humans must have spent months planning this, one technician reported. They removed every trace of their presence. Everything they built, everything they installed, everything they programmed. It is all gone. Counselor Sindra realized the full scope of the problem. She called an emergency economic session. The numbers were devastating. Human trade had represented 35% of Council GDP. Human innovations had improved efficiency across every sector. Human medical technology had kept several plagues under control. Our economy is going to collapse, Sindra said. We were dependent on human goods and services without even realizing it. They were everywhere in our supply chains. Now there is a hole in our economic system that we cannot fill. Already the effects were showing. Medical shortages were appearing in outer territories. Power grids were becoming unstable without human maintenance. Trade routes were disrupted. Prices were rising as scarcity hit various markets. Some council members suggested sending a military force to find humanity and force them to return. Admiral Torkfin refused. We do not know where they went, he explained. Our scouts cannot find any trace of them. They have technology we do not understand. And if we did find them and tried to force them back, we would be starting a war with a species that is clearly more advanced than we thought. Vexnar ordered a full investigation into humanity's technological capabilities. What his researchers discovered shocked him. The humans had been far more advanced than they let on. They had shared some technology with the Council, but kept their best innovations secret. The new FTL drives that scouts found traces of could travel 3 times faster than Council ships. The cloaking technology was generations ahead of anything the Council possessed. The AI systems were more sophisticated than what humans had shared. Even their weapons technology was more advanced. They were always ahead of us, one researcher said. They just did not tell us. They shared enough to seem helpful, but kept the truly revolutionary technology for themselves. Ambassador Krelthor refused to accept this. The humans were primitive when we found them. They could not have developed all this on their own. But they did, Dr. Venn said. We underestimated them from the start. We assumed they needed us, but the truth is we needed them far more. A message arrived 3 months after humanity's disappearance. It was broadcast on all frequencies, impossible to ignore. The voice belonged to engineer Kyle Patterson, one of the humans who had worked on Council infrastructure projects. To the Galactic Council, Patterson said, you are probably wondering where we went and why we left. The answer is simple. You wanted us as tools, not equals. You took our innovations and called them your own. You used our soldiers and called them cannon fodder. You restricted our growth and called it guidance. We finally realized the truth. You never wanted partners. You wanted servants. 6 months had passed since humanity's departure, and the Galactic Council was falling apart. High Chancellor Vexnar stood in the Grand Chamber, looking at the empty seats where human representatives once sat. Those seats had become symbols of the Council's failure, and every member who walked past them felt the weight of that failure. The infrastructure problems had grown worse. Power grids across Council space were experiencing rolling blackouts. The systems that humans had installed and maintained were breaking down without their expertise. Council technicians tried to fix them, but they discovered that human technology was far more complex than they had realized. One engineer explained it to Vexnar in simple terms. The humans designed these systems to be efficient and powerful, but they also made them dependent on regular maintenance that only they knew how to perform. Without human engineers, these systems are degrading. Within a year, many of them will fail completely. The medical crisis was even worse. 3 plagues that had been under control for decades were spreading again. The vaccines that humans had developed were running out, and no one else could replicate them. Council scientists studied the human research, but it was incomplete. The humans had taken the crucial data with them. Counselor Syndra reported that over 15 million people had died from preventable diseases in the past 6 months. The number was growing daily. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Medical supplies were running critically low, and there was no solution in sight. We need to contact the humans, Syndra said during an emergency council session. We need to ask them to share the vaccine formulas. People are dying. Ambassador Krelthor stood up, his reptilian features twisted in anger. We will not beg the humans for help. That would show weakness. We are the Galactic Council. We have survived for thousands of years. We will overcome this crisis without them. But they were not overcoming it. The economic situation continued to deteriorate. Without human trade, several council species were facing severe shortages. The Kelthani needed human-grown food supplements to maintain their population's health. The Zorvan relied on human-manufactured components for their industries. The Drak Confederation had built their entire technology sector around reverse-engineered human innovations. All of it was collapsing. Factories were shutting down. Trade routes were empty. Unemployment was rising across council space. Some economists predicted a complete economic depression within 18 months. The military situation was perhaps the most alarming. The Krath Swarm had launched 3 more attacks, each one more successful than the last. Without human tactical systems and defensive technologies, Council forces were struggling. Admiral Torkvan requested an emergency meeting with Vexnar. The military commander looked exhausted, his insectoid features drooping with stress. We lost another engagement yesterday, Torkvan said. The Krath destroyed a Voran colony ship carrying 50,000 civilians. Our fleet could not respond fast enough. Our weapons could not target the swarm effectively. Our shields failed under their acid attacks. Everything the humans improved for us is gone, and we are back to fighting with outdated systems. How many ships did we lose? Vexnar asked quietly. 17. The Krath lost maybe 30, but they have thousands more. We cannot sustain these losses. At this rate, the Krath will break through our outer defenses within a year. Vexnar felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. He was the High Chancellor. He was supposed to lead the Council through crises. But this was beyond anything he had faced before. Dr. Lyra Venn came to see him late one night. The xenobiologist looked tired and sad. She had been one of the few Council members who had truly befriended human researchers. I have been reviewing the records, she said, studying everything we did wrong. The list is long, Chancellor. We took advantage of humanity from the moment they joined the Council. We stole their innovations, dismissed their contributions, and treated them as inferior. And when they proved themselves in battle, we called their dead soldiers cannon fodder. I know, Vexnar said. I have reviewed the records as well. I approved many of those decisions. I told myself we were guiding a younger species. I did not realize we were exploiting them. The humans realized it, Dr. Venn said. They saw exactly what we were doing, and they decided they deserved better. They were right. Several council members began demanding action. They wanted the council to issue an official apology. They wanted humanity invited back. They wanted to make things right. Ambassador Krelthor opposed this strongly. If we apologize, we admit weakness. Other species will see it as an opportunity to challenge Council authority. We have maintained order in this galaxy for millennia. We cannot let one species' departure destroy that. One species' departure is already destroying it, Councillor Syndra said. Look around you, Krelthor. The Council is falling apart. Species are questioning our leadership. Some are talking about leaving and finding their own paths. The humans started something when they left. They showed others that leaving is possible. She was right. 3 minor species had already withdrawn from the Council. They had seen humanity successfully break away and decided to try the same thing. Other species were watching carefully, waiting to see what would happen. The investigation into humanity's departure revealed uncomfortable truths. Council security reviewed all the records and discovered that humans had been planning the evacuation for months. They had moved supplies, staged ships, and prepared colonies with precision and care. More troubling was the discovery that humans had been much more advanced than anyone suspected. The technology they shared with the Council was impressive, but it was nothing compared to what they kept for themselves. Council intelligence estimated that humanity was now 50 years ahead of Council technology, maybe more. How did we not know? Vexnar asked the security chief. Because they hid it from us, the chief replied. They shared enough to seem cooperative, but kept their best innovations secret. They were smarter than we gave them credit for. Much smarter. Economic projections showed the Council entering a severe depression. Tax revenues were falling as trade collapsed. Several Council programs would need to be cut. Military spending would have to be reduced precisely when the Krath threat was growing. Social services would be strained as unemployment rose. We built our economy on a foundation that included human participation, Syndra explained. When they left, they took part of that foundation with them. Now the whole structure is cracking. Protests erupted on several Council worlds. Citizens were angry about the shortages, the economic problems, and the military failures. They wanted to know why their leaders had let humanity leave. They wanted to know why the Council had treated humans so poorly. On the Voran homeworld, demonstrators gathered outside government buildings holding signs that read, "Bring back the humans," and "The Council failed us." Similar protests happened across Council space. The people were losing faith in their leaders. Ambassador Krelthor finally admitted his mistake. In a private meeting with Vexnar, the proud reptilian looked defeated. "My words at the memorial were catastrophic," Krelthor said. "I did not think before I spoke. I viewed the human soldiers as resources, not people. I was wrong, and that mistake has cost us everything." "It was not just your words," Vexnar replied. "It was how we treated them from the beginning. We never truly welcomed humanity as equals. We saw them as useful primitives. They proved us wrong, and now they are gone." The Council held a special session to discuss what to do. The debate lasted for days. Some members wanted to send a military expedition to find humanity and force negotiations. Others wanted to focus on fixing the internal problems. A few suggested that the Council should be restructured to prevent this from happening again. Finally, a vote was taken. The Council would issue a formal apology to humanity and invite them to return as full members with complete voting rights. The apology would acknowledge the theft of technology, the exploitation of human contributions, and the insult to their fallen soldiers. It would be broadcast on all frequencies, hoping that humans would hear it wherever they had gone. Vexnar himself wrote the apology. He chose his words carefully, trying to convey genuine remorse. He acknowledged every failure, every mistake, every moment of arrogance. He promised that things would be different if humanity returned. He offered full equality, protection of human interests, and compensation for the stolen technology. The apology was recorded and broadcast across the galaxy. It went out on every communication channel, carried by relay stations to the farthest reaches of known space. The message was simple. Humanity, we were wrong. We are sorry. Please come home, but there was no response. The message traveled through space, reaching empty systems where human colonies once thrived. It bounced off relay stations and disappeared into the void. No one answered. Days passed. Then weeks. The Council waited, hoping for some sign that humans had heard the apology. But the silence continued. The stars themselves seemed to mock the Council's plea, offering no hint of where humanity had gone. Counselor Syndra sat with Dr. Venn in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "Do you think they heard the message?" Syndra asked. I think they heard it, Dr. Venn replied. I also think they are choosing not. 1 year had passed since humanity's departure. The Galactic Council was a shadow of its former self. The Grand Chamber, where hundreds of species once gathered in unity, now felt cold and empty. High Chancellor Vexnar attended fewer sessions each month. There was less to discuss and fewer members who bothered to show up. The apology broadcast had been running for months, sent out on every frequency, repeated endlessly into the silent void. No human had responded. No human ship had been detected. No trace of humanity's new location had been found. It was as if they had been erased from the galaxy. The economic depression had fully taken hold. Unemployment across Council space had reached 40%. Trade had collapsed to a fraction of what it once was. Entire industries that relied on human technology or human goods had simply ceased to exist. Poverty was spreading, and with it came unrest. The Krath swarm had grown bolder. They attacked Council territory every few weeks now, each time pushing deeper into defended space. Admiral Torkvan's replacement, a younger commander named Zexith, was doing his best with limited resources. But everyone knew the Council was losing the war. 15 species had left the Council entirely. They had taken their ships, their resources, and their loyalty elsewhere. Some had formed smaller alliances among themselves. Others had gone independent, choosing isolation over participation in what they saw as a failing institution. Ambassador Krelthor rarely left his quarters anymore. The once proud reptilian had been shattered by guilt. He understood now that his words had destroyed something precious. His acceptable cannon fodder comment had become infamous across the galaxy, a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. Councillor Syndra was working with a team of economists to try to stabilize what remained of the Council's economy. It was difficult work with few successes. She often found herself wondering what humans would have done to solve these problems. They had always been so innovative, so resourceful. Then, on a quiet morning, something changed. A ship appeared at the edge of Council space. It was small, a courier vessel, but its signature was unmistakable. It was human. The news spread instantly. A human ship had returned. After a full year of silence, humanity had sent someone back. The Council leadership gathered immediately, uncertain what to expect. Was this an envoy? A scout? A messenger? The ship requested permission to dock at the Council's main station. Vexnar personally granted the request. He wanted to be there when the humans arrived. He needed to see them, to speak with them, to try to make things right. The docking bay was crowded with Council members, all of them waiting to see who would emerge from the human ship. Security teams were present, though Vexnar had given strict orders that the humans were to be treated with complete respect. No mistakes this time. The airlock opened and a single human stepped out. Captain Daniel Brooks walked into the docking bay with calm confidence. He wore a simple uniform, nothing formal or military. He looked older than Vexnar remembered, with more gray in his hair and deeper lines around his eyes. But his gaze was steady and strong. Captain Brooks, Vexnar said, stepping forward. Welcome back. We have hoped for this moment for so long. Daniel looked at the gathered Council members. His expression was neutral, giving nothing away. High Chancellor, I am here to deliver a message from humanity. Nothing more, of course. Please come to the Council chamber. We are prepared to listen to anything humanity wishes to say. The walk to the chamber was silent. Council members whispered among themselves, but Daniel paid them no attention. He walked with the bearing of someone who had nothing to prove and nothing to fear. When they reached the chamber, every seat was filled. Word had spread, and everyone wanted to witness this moment. Daniel stood at the central podium where speakers addressed the Council. He looked around at the gathered species, taking his time. Then he placed a small data chip on the podium and began to speak. I am Captain Daniel Brooks of the Human Vessel Messenger. I am here to deliver humanity's response to the Galactic Council's apology and invitation to return. The chamber was absolutely silent. Everyone waited for his next words. First, let me tell you what humanity has accomplished in the years since we left, Daniel said. We traveled 40,000 light years from this location, far beyond any space the Council has mapped. We found a region rich with habitable worlds and abundant resources. We have established colonies on 17 worlds. We have built new cities, new stations, new infrastructure. He touched the data chip and a holographic display appeared above the podium. Images of human colonies showed thriving settlements, advanced cities, and happy people. Our population is growing. Our technology continues to advance. We have made contact with 4 other species in our new region of space. Species that, like us, chose to leave the civilizations that exploited them. We have formed a confederation based on equality, mutual respect, and genuine cooperation. It works because we all remember what it feels like to be treated as lesser. More images appeared. Ships with designs far more advanced than anything the Council had. Space stations that dwarfed Council installations. Technology that seemed like something from the distant future. Our scientists estimate that we are now 50 years ahead of Council technology. Daniel continued. Maybe more. Without the restrictions you placed on our research, without the theft of our innovations, we have progressed faster than we ever thought possible. We have developed medical treatments that could cure diseases you still struggle with. We have created energy systems that are 3 times more efficient than anything you use. We have built weapons that could end the Krath threat in months. The Council members shifted uncomfortably. Some looked amazed at the images. Others looked ashamed. Daniel's expression remained neutral as he continued. I am here to deliver President Claire Morrison's official response to your apology and invitation. A new hologram appeared. President Morrison looked older as well, but strong and confident. She stood in what appeared to be the Capitol building of a new world, addressing the camera directly. To the Galactic Council, Morrison began, we received your apology. We heard your invitation to return. We appreciate the sentiment even if it comes too late to matter. Her expression was sad but firm. You had 15 years to treat us as equals. 15 years to respect our contributions, honor our sacrifices, and value our partnership. You chose not to. You chose exploitation over cooperation. You chose arrogance over respect. You chose to see us as tools rather than friends. When our soldiers died defending your worlds, you called them acceptable cannon fodder. When we developed technology to help everyone, you stole it and claimed it as your own. When we asked for equal standing, you told us to prove ourselves more. We proved ourselves 42,000 times over, and it still was not enough. Morrison's voice grew stronger. So we left. We took our people, our technology, our hopes, and our dreams, and we went somewhere you could never follow. We built something new, something better, something based on the principles you claim to value but never actually practice. Your apology is noted, but it changes nothing. We are not coming back. We have no desire to return to a council that only valued us when we were gone. We have found something better out here in the darkness between stars. We have found dignity. The hologram showed images of the human confederation, multiple species working together, building together, thriving together. It looked like what the Galactic Council was supposed to be but never actually was. We will not harm you, Morrison said. Despite everything you did to us, we are not vindictive. We are better than that. But we also will not help you. Your problems are your own. You created them through arrogance and exploitation. Now you must solve them the same way we solved ours, through hard work, innovation, and respect for others. Her final words were measured and calm. This is goodbye, Galactic Council. We wish you no ill will, but we also want nothing more to do with you. Our paths have separated. Keep to yours and we will keep to ours. If you try to find us, you will fail. If you try to follow us, you will be turned away. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact. The hologram faded. Daniel stood silently, letting the message sink in. Around the chamber, council members looked stunned. Some seemed angry. Others appeared devastated. A few were crying. Ambassador Krelthor stood up, his voice desperate. Captain Brooks, please. We understand we made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But surely we can discuss this. Surely there is some way to repair what was broken. Daniel looked at him for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was not angry. It was simply tired. Ambassador Krelthor, do you remember what you said at the memorial service for our fallen soldiers? You called them acceptable cannon fodder. I was there. I heard those words. So did Commander Lisa Martinez, whose brother had just died fighting for your worlds. Krelthor seemed to shrink. I know. I have regretted those words every day since. You should have regretted them before you said them, Daniel replied. But here is what you need to understand. Those words were not the problem. They were just the moment we finally saw the truth. You always thought of us that way. You just finally said it out loud. He looked around the chamber. All of you thought that way. You viewed humanity as useful but lesser, innovative but primitive.